In the vast darkness between stars, where civilizations rise and fall like whispers in the void, there exists a universal truth that every predator species learns: some prey fights back. But what happens when the prey doesn't just fight back? What happens when it wins? The Zephyrians had ruled the galactic hunting grounds for 3 millennia, their bioships cutting through space like silver daggers, their neural networks humming with the thrill of the chase. They had harvested the young from 1,000 worlds, broken the spirits of countless civilizations, and turned terror into an art form. Until they found Earth. Until they took her child. What they discovered in that single moment of miscalculation would echo across the galaxy, reshaping everything they thought they knew about power, about fear, and about the sleeping giants that sometimes masquerade as ordinary parents. This is the story of the hunt that went wrong. The story of what happens when you mistake humanity's greatest strength for its greatest weakness. The story of why, in the cold reaches of space, some doors should never be opened. And why some mothers should never be tested. The morning Sarah Chen kissed her daughter goodbye, she had no idea it would be the last normal moment of her life. Emma bounced on her toes beside the school bus, her backpack nearly as big as she was, chattering about the field trip to the observatory. At 8 years old, she had inherited Sarah's curiosity and her father's fearless streak, a combination that made her ask questions like, "Mom, do you think aliens would want to be friends?" while pointing at the stars through their kitchen window. "Be good for Mrs. Rodriguez," Sarah said, smoothing down Emma's unruly curls. "And remember what we talked about: don't wander off, listen to instructions, and if something feels wrong, scream really loud." Emma grinned, revealing a gap where her front tooth used to be. "I know, Mom. You worry too much." Sarah watched the yellow bus disappear around the corner, carrying 37 children toward the Palomar Observatory. She had work to do. Her latest project for NASA involved analyzing deep space radio signals for patterns that might indicate intelligent life. The irony wasn't lost on her as she settled into her home office, coffee steaming beside stacks of data printouts covered in frequency analyses and mathematical formulas. The first sign something was wrong came at 2:47 p.m. Sarah's phone rang with the school's number, but, instead of the principal's familiar voice, she heard static. Then, breathing. Then, a sound that made her blood freeze, a high-pitched whine, like feedback from equipment that operated on frequencies no human technology could produce. "Hello," she said, gripping the phone tighter. The line went dead. Sarah called the school directly. No answer. She tried Mrs. Rodriguez's cell phone. Voicemail. A cold weight settled in her stomach as she searched for the observatory's contact information, her fingers trembling as she dialed. "Palomar Observatory, this is Janet." "Hi, this is Sarah Chen. My daughter Emma is part of the field trip group that should have arrived, ma'am. We haven't had any school groups scheduled for today." The world tilted sideways. Sarah's office chair creaked as she leaned forward, staring at the permission slip still magneted to her refrigerator across the room. Palomar Observatory. Today. 2 p.m. arrival. That's impossible. I have the paperwork right here. 37 kids from Lincoln Elementary, ma'am. I've been here all day. No buses. No children. Are you sure you have the right date? Sarah hung up and ran outside, scanning the sky as if she might see the bus returning. The afternoon sun felt cold on her skin. She called Lincoln Elementary again, and this time someone answered, but it wasn't anyone she recognized. "Lincoln Elementary, how can I help you?" "This is Sarah Chen, Emma Chen's mother." "Where are the children?" A pause. "Too long. Ma'am, I'm not showing any field trips scheduled for today. And I don't have a student named Emma Chen in our system." "That's impossible. She's in Mrs. Rodriguez's class. 3rd grade. She left this morning, ma'am. Mrs. Rodriguez retired 5 years ago." Sarah ended the call, her hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. She ran to her car, driving to the school on autopilot, her mind racing through increasingly impossible explanations. Wrong number. Computer error. Some kind of mix-up that would make sense once she got there. The Lincoln Elementary parking lot was empty except for 2 maintenance trucks. The building looked wrong, older somehow, as if years had passed instead of hours. Sarah pounded on the locked front doors until a janitor appeared, a man she'd never seen before despite dropping Emma off hundreds of times. "School's closed for renovation," he said through the glass. "Has been for months." Sarah pressed her face against the window, staring at hallways that looked exactly as they had that morning, yet somehow felt abandoned. The bulletin boards were bare. The trophy case was empty. Even the smell was wrong, disinfectant and dust instead of the usual mixture of cafeteria food and childhood chaos. "Where are the children?" she whispered. The janitor shrugged and walked away. Sarah drove home in a daze, her mind struggling to process what couldn't be processed. She searched through Emma's room, touching toys and clothes that proved her daughter had existed, was real. The bed was still unmade from that morning. Dirty clothes in the hamper. A drawing taped to the wall showing stick figures labeled me and Mom and the stars. She called her ex-husband, David, in San Francisco. "Sarah? What's wrong? Where's Emma?" "Who?" The phone slipped from her hand, clattering against the hardwood floor. When she picked it up, David was still talking, his voice distant and concerned. "Sarah, are you okay? Did something happen at work? You're scaring me." "Our daughter," she said slowly. "Emma. She's 8 years old. Curly hair. Missing tooth. You bought her that telescope last Christmas." Silence. "Then, Sarah, we don't have a daughter. We talked about kids, but we never. Are you feeling all right? Maybe you should see someone." Sarah hung up and sank onto Emma's bed, surrounded by evidence of a life that apparently only she remembered. Photos showed just Sarah, alone. The school had no records. Her ex-husband, who had fought for joint custody just 6 months ago, acted as if Emma had never existed. But Sarah knew better. She was a scientist. She analyzed data, looked for patterns, drew conclusions based on evidence. And the evidence told a story that most people would call impossible. Someone or something had taken her daughter and erased all traces of her existence from the world. Almost all traces. Sarah's training kicked in, pushing grief aside in favor of methodical investigation. If Emma had been taken, there would be evidence. Technology advanced enough to manipulate memories and records would leave other footprints. She just had to know where to look. She started with her own work. The radio signals she'd been analyzing showed unusual patterns over the past month, frequencies that didn't match any known natural phenomena. The data was subtle, easy to dismiss as equipment malfunction, but when Sarah mapped the signal strength against time, a pattern emerged. The signals had been getting stronger. More focused. And they had peaked yesterday, just hours before the fake field trip. Sarah cross-referenced the signal data with reports from other observatories, finding similar anomalies worldwide. Brief electromagnetic pulses. Atmospheric disturbances. Satellite malfunctions. All dismissed as equipment failures or solar activity, but all following the same timeline. As if someone had been scanning the planet. As if someone had been choosing. Sarah worked through the night, her scientific training warring with a growing certainty that challenged everything she thought she knew about the universe. By dawn, she had compiled enough evidence to fill 3 notebooks: radiation signatures that didn't match any known technology, electromagnetic patterns that suggested artificial intelligence beyond human capability, and energy readings that spoke of propulsion systems that operated on principles humanity hadn't discovered yet. Someone had been watching Earth. Studying it. And, 3 days ago, they had acted. Sarah stood in her kitchen, staring at the permission slip that everyone else somehow couldn't see, and made a decision that would have seemed insane just 24 hours earlier. She was going to find her daughter, and she was going to bring her home. Even if she had to search every star in the galaxy to do it. The first step was admitting the truth that her scientific mind had been fighting. Earth was not alone, and humanity had just been noticed by something that viewed children as commodities to be harvested. Sarah Chen, astrophysicist and mother, was about to become something else entirely. Something that would make the galaxy remember why some species, despite appearing defenseless, had survived long enough to reach the stars. She was about to become what happened when you took the wrong child from the wrong mother. And, somewhere in the vast darkness between worlds, alien hunters were about to learn that humanity's greatest weakness, their fierce, protective love for their young, was actually their most dangerous strength. The hunt was about to reverse direction. 3 weeks after Emma disappeared, Sarah Chen broke into the Atacama Large Millimeter Array in Chile. It wasn't really breaking in, her NASA credentials still worked, and Dr. Martinez had been happy to grant her emergency access when she explained she was tracking an unusual signal. She simply hadn't mentioned that the signal was connected to her missing daughter or that she planned to use 66 radio telescopes to hunt aliens. The ALMA facility stretched across the Chilean desert like a field of giant metal flowers, each dish trained on the cosmos, listening for whispers from distant worlds. Sarah had spent the past 3 weeks building equipment that didn't officially exist, using principles she'd derived from the signal patterns and radiation signatures left behind by Emma's kidnappers. The device hummed beside her in the control room, a jury-rigged combination of quantum processors, modified radio components, and circuitry that operated on frequencies beyond human technology. It looked like something a mad scientist would build, all exposed wires and improvised connections, but the math was solid. If her calculations were correct, it would let her trace the source of the signals that had been scanning Earth. Sarah's fingers moved across the keyboard, aligning the telescope array toward coordinates her analysis had identified as the origin point of the mysterious transmissions. The screens filled with data as the dishes turned skyward, and Sarah held her breath. Nothing. She adjusted the frequency range, pushing into bands that conventional wisdom said were empty space. Still nothing. Then, she activated her improvised device. The screens exploded with light. Signals flooded the display, not just from the coordinates she targeted, but from dozens of points throughout that region of space. Hidden traffic moving between invisible objects. Communication networks operating on principles that made human technology look like smoke signals. Sarah's hands shook as she recorded everything, her scientific training warring with the impossibility of what she was seeing. The signals weren't random, they showed structure, purpose, intelligence. And they were all centered around objects that her conventional telescopes couldn't detect. Cloaked ships. Dozens of them. Sarah spent the next 6 hours mapping the fleet, using triangulation and signal analysis to determine their positions, courses, and relative sizes. What she found made her stomach turn. The ships were arranged in a hunting formation, sweeping through star systems in a pattern that suggested they were looking for something specific. Or someone specific. Young beings. Children. The signal patterns included biometric data that could only be interpreted one way. The aliens were scanning for developing nervous systems, for the unique neural patterns that marked adolescent members of various species. They were child hunters. Sarah traced their path backward, finding evidence of visits to dozens of worlds. Each system showed the same electromagnetic signatures, the same brief disturbances, the same inexplicable disappearances that local populations would dismiss as natural phenomena or statistical anomalies. They had been hunting for millennia. As dawn broke over the Chilean desert, Sarah downloaded everything onto encrypted drives, her mind racing with implications that went far beyond her personal mission. Emma wasn't just missing, she was part of a galactic atrocity that had been happening for thousands of years. But Sarah was a mother before she was a scientist, and, right now, only one thing mattered: finding her daughter. The signal analysis provided coordinates for the hunting fleet's current position, roughly 47 light-years from Earth. Impossibly far by human standards, but Sarah wasn't thinking like a human anymore. She was thinking like something else, something that would cross the galaxy if necessary to protect its young. Sarah flew back to California and spent 3 days liquidating everything she owned. Her house, her car, her retirement savings, even Emma's college fund, everything converted to cash and, then, to resources. She bought time on private telescopes, commissioned specialized equipment from contacts in the defense industry, and reached out to former colleagues who owed her favors. Her cover story was elegant in its simplicity. She was working on a classified project involving deep space monitoring. People believed it because it was mostly true, and because Dr. Sarah Chen had a reputation for brilliant work and absolute integrity. If only they knew what she was really planning. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kim Patel, a former student who now worked for SpaceX, called her with news about anomalies in the Kuiper Belt. Automated probes had detected objects that didn't match any known celestial bodies' artificial structures using active camouflage to hide from Earth-based observation. The weird thing is, Kim said over a secure video call, the structures seem to be watching us. Every time we get close, they shift position to maintain optimal observation angles of populated areas. Sarah's blood ran cold. How long have they been there? Best guess? Years. Maybe decades. They're good at hiding, but our new sensor array caught gravitational anomalies that suggest significant mass moving in patterns that don't match orbital mechanics. Watchers. The aliens had left surveillance stations in Earth's own solar system. Sarah spent 48 hours planning an approach that would have been impossible for any normal human. But she wasn't normal anymore. Grief had burned away everything soft about her, leaving behind something focused and relentless. She was a weapon now, disguised as a scientist, powered by maternal love that had been forged in the fires of loss. The plan was insane. The plan was suicide. The plan was also the only chance Emma had. Sarah used her contacts to arrange a private launch through a small aerospace company that specialized in deep space research missions. The official mission profile involved deploying experimental sensors in the outer solar system. The actual mission involved something that would have terrified anyone who understood what she was really attempting. She was going to make contact with Emma's kidnappers. The spacecraft launched on a Tuesday morning, carrying Sarah and equipment that represented the pinnacle of human ingenuity. But, hidden among the scientific instruments was something else: weapons technology disguised as research equipment, powered by principles she'd derived from studying the alien signals. If humanity was going to announce its presence to a galactic civilization of child hunters, it was going to do so with teeth bared. The flight to the Kuiper Belt took 18 days, during which Sarah refined her understanding of the alien technology and prepared for contact. She monitored their communications, learning their language through pattern recognition and mathematical analysis. She studied their ship configurations, identifying weaknesses and tactical limitations. Most importantly, she prepared herself mentally for what she was about to do. Sarah had spent her life searching for signs of intelligent life in the universe. She had dreamed of first contact, imagined the wonder and excitement of meeting another sapient species. She had pictured peaceful exchanges of knowledge, cultural understanding, the expansion of human consciousness through contact with alien minds. Instead, she was about to meet monsters. The first alien structure appeared on her sensors like a ghost becoming solid. Massive and angular, it hung in space near Neptune's orbit, its surface rippling with adaptive camouflage that shifted to match the starfield behind it. But Sarah's modified sensors could see through the deception, revealing a facility the size of a small moon. She counted 17 ships docked at the station, each one sleek and predatory, built for speed and stealth. Hunting vessels. The same class of ship that had taken Emma. Sarah opened a communication channel using the frequency patterns she had learned from their transmissions. Her message was simple, broadcast in their own language using mathematical concepts that any spacefaring civilization would understand. "I know what you took from my world. I want it back." The response came within minutes, not words, but a scanning beam that analyzed her ship from bow to stern. Then, laughter, transmitted as harmonics that her equipment translated into something resembling amusement. A new signal arrived, this time carrying voice data that her computers converted into words she could understand. "Little ground crawler thinks it can make demands. Amusing. Your spawn will fetch good prices in the Kythera markets. Such curiosity, such resilience. The buyers will be pleased." Sarah's hands clenched into fists, but her voice remained steady. "Return the human child, and I will leave peacefully." More laughter. One ground crawler threatening the Zephyrian hunting collective. "Your species shows promise. Perhaps we will return for more samples once this one is processed." The communication ended, and Sarah watched as 3 of the hunting ships detached from the station, moving to intercept her small vessel. They approached casually, without haste, like cats playing with wounded prey. They had made a mistake. The Zephyrians had ruled the galactic hunting grounds for 3,000 years. They had harvested the young from civilizations across the galaxy, breaking resistance and selling children to the highest bidders. They had faced desperate parents before, had destroyed countless attempts at rescue and revenge. But they had never faced a human mother backed by human technology and human determination. As the three ships closed in around her vessel, Sarah activated systems that shouldn't have existed, weapons that operated on principles humanity had learned from studying their own transmissions. The aliens had been careless with their signals, revealing more about their technology than they realized. Sarah had been listening, learning, preparing. You want to know about human children? She broadcast on all frequencies as her weapons came online. Let me show you what human mothers are capable of. The first hunting ship died before its crew realized they were under attack. Sarah's plasma cannon, a weapon built using principles reverse-engineered from their own drive signatures, cut through their shields like they weren't there, turning elegant alien curves into expanding clouds of superheated debris. The second ship tried to flee, but Sarah had studied their maneuvering patterns for weeks. She knew their capabilities, their limitations, their blind spots. Her ship was smaller, but it was also faster and more maneuverable than anything they had faced before. The second ship died trying to run. The third ship attempted to fight back, launching weapons that could have vaporized an entire human city. But Sarah's vessel had been designed by someone who understood their technology better than they did. Every shot missed or was deflected by defensive systems that shouldn't have been possible for a species that had only just achieved interplanetary flight. When the third ship exploded, Sarah opened the communication channel again. "My name is Sarah Chen," she said, her voice carrying across space to the alien station and every ship within range. "You took my daughter from Earth 3 weeks ago. Her name is Emma, she is 8 years old, and I want her back. This is your only warning." The response came from the station itself, a deeper voice carrying authority and barely contained rage. "Impossible. Ground crawlers do not possess such technology. Who are you really?" Sarah smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "I'm what happens when you take the wrong child from the wrong mother. You have 1 hour to return Emma and every other human child you've taken, or I will demonstrate why my species survived long enough to reach the stars." What the Zephyrians didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Sarah had spent 3 weeks analyzing not just their technology, but their psychology, their social structure, their fears. She had learned that they were apex predators who had never faced a species capable of effective resistance. They had grown careless, overconfident. They had forgotten that sometimes prey could evolve fangs of their own. In 1 hour, the galaxy was going to learn that humanity was no longer prey. In 1 hour, the hunt was going to reverse direction permanently. The hour passed in silence. Sarah floated in space beyond Neptune's orbit, her small ship holding position just outside the effective range of the Zephyrian station's defensive weapons. She had used the time to prepare not just her equipment, but her mind. What she was about to do would change everything, not just for Emma, but for every human who would ever look up at the stars. Earth would no longer be invisible to the galactic community. After today, humanity would be noticed, catalogued, evaluated. Some of the attention would be friendly. Much of it wouldn't be. Sarah was about to paint a target on her entire species. But Emma was worth it. All the children were worth it. The communication array crackled to life exactly 60 minutes after her ultimatum. "Ground crawler Sarah Chen." The voice belonged to Huntmaster Vexhai, the Zephyrian commander whose arrogant Sarah had spent the hour studying. "Your deadline has expired. We have decided to keep your spawn and take you as well. Your technology will be studied, your secrets extracted, your defiance punished." Sarah checked her sensors. 17 ships remained at the station, but only 12 were powering up their weapons. The other 5 were hanging back, which meant they were either damaged or, more likely, contained cargo that the Zephyrians didn't want to risk in combat. Cargo like stolen children. "I gave you a chance," Sarah said softly. "Remember that." She activated systems that transformed her modest research vessel into something else entirely. Hidden panels retracted, revealing weapon arrays that human physicists would have declared impossible. Power cores that operated on principles stolen from the aliens themselves came online, feeding energy into devices that Sarah had built during 18 days of obsessive preparation. But the real weapon wasn't technology. It was knowledge. Sarah had spent 3 weeks studying every signal the Zephyrians had ever transmitted, every communication protocol, every system command. She had learned their language better than some of their own crew members. More importantly, she had learned their weaknesses. The first attack wasn't kinetic. It was informational. Sarah transmitted a virus, not a simple computer program, but a sophisticated AI construct that she had built using principles derived from their own network protocols. It slipped into their communication array like water through cracks, spreading through their systems faster than their security could respond. The virus didn't destroy anything. Instead, it observed, mapped, learned. Within minutes, Sarah had complete access to their station's database. What she found there made her stomach turn and her resolve harden into something unbreakable. The Zephyrians weren't just hunters, they were slavers operating on a galactic scale. Their database contained records of thousands of raids across hundreds of worlds, millions of children stolen and sold to buyers throughout the galaxy. Emma was there, listed as Sample 47 Beta, Human Juvenile, High Curiosity Rating, scheduled for processing. Scheduled for processing. Sarah's finger hovered over the firing control for exactly 3 seconds while she memorized the station's internal layout, the location of the holding cells, and the identity of every Zephyrian involved in this atrocity. Then, she opened fire. Her first salvo wasn't aimed at the ships. It was aimed at the station's power grid, using weapons that converted matter directly into energy. The explosions rippled across the massive structure like lightning made solid, severing connections and plunging entire sections into darkness. The Zephyrian ships responded instantly, launching themselves toward her position with weapons blazing. But Sarah wasn't where they expected her to be. Her ship moved like liquid mercury, following flight paths that violated everything they knew about physics. She had spent the past hour studying their tactical responses, learning their patterns, preparing counters for every strategy they might employ. The first ship to reach her firing range lasted exactly 12 seconds. Sarah's plasma cannon punched through its shields, armor, and hull in a single devastating burst that left nothing but expanding gases where a predator had been moments before. The second and third ships died before they could adjust their tactics. But Sarah wasn't trying to destroy the entire fleet. She was buying time and creating chaos while her virus completed its real mission. Deep in the station's computer core, her artificial intelligence construct had found what it was looking for: the central control systems that governed everything from life support to the holding cell security. Huntmaster Vexai, Sarah broadcast while dodging another volley of alien weapons fire. You have something that belongs to me. I'm coming to collect it. She changed course, accelerating directly toward the station while her ship's defensive systems deflected incoming fire. The remaining Zephyrian vessels gave chase, their commanders screaming orders in languages that her computers translated into expressions of rage, disbelief, and growing fear. They had never faced a single opponent who could match their entire fleet. Sarah's ship struck the station's docking bay like a meteor made of human determination and superior technology. Emergency barriers slammed shut automatically, but her virus had already compromised the station's security protocols. Airlocks opened on command, atmospheric controls responded to her wishes, and defensive systems turned their attention elsewhere. Sarah emerged from her ship wearing a modified pressure suit that incorporated technology she had reverse-engineered from the Zephyrian transmissions. She moved through the station's corridors like a ghost, her suit's adaptive camouflage making her nearly invisible while her enhanced sensors guided her toward the holding cells. The Zephyrians she encountered died quietly and efficiently. Sarah had studied their anatomy along with their technology, learning where to strike for maximum damage. She felt nothing as she cut through security teams, her mind focused entirely on reaching Emma. The holding cells were deeper in the station, protected by layers of security that had kept thousands of kidnapped children imprisoned over the centuries. But Sarah's virus had already opened every lock, disabled every alarm, and confused every guard into thinking the emergency was happening somewhere else. She found Emma in cell block 7, sitting in a corner with 12 other human children ranging in age from 6 to 14. They looked up when the door opened, their faces showing a mixture of hope and terror that broke Sarah's heart and rebuilt it harder than before.
"Emma?" Sarah whispered, pulling off her helmet. Her daughter's eyes went wide. "Mom?"
"How did you, Mom? You're in space." Sarah knelt and pulled Emma into a hug that conveyed 8 years of love and 3 weeks of desperate determination.
"I told you I'd always find you, remember? No matter how far you went."
"There are others," Emma said, pulling back to look at Sarah's face.
"Kids from lots of different places. The blue people took them too."
Sarah looked around the cell, seeing faces that represented dozens of worlds, species she had never imagined. The Zephyrians had been busy, and Earth wasn't their only target.
"We're getting everyone out," she promised.
The virus finished its work just as Huntmaster Vexai and his remaining crew reached the holding area. Sarah heard them coming through the station's corridors, their footsteps heavy with alien gravity and heavier with rage. She had perhaps 10 minutes before they broke through the barriers she had erected. 10 minutes to evacuate several hundred kidnapped children from a station designed to prevent exactly that kind of rescue.
Sarah smiled. She had planned for this too.
Her ship's AI, a limited version of the same construct that had infected the station, activated protocols she had programmed during her journey to the Kuiper Belt. Emergency pods began launching from hidden compartments in her vessel's hull, each one programmed with navigation data that would take them to civilizations capable of caring for the rescued children.
But the human children were her priority. Her responsibility. Her reason for being here.
Sarah activated a device she had hoped never to use, a quantum transmitter that would send a message back to Earth faster than light itself, using principles that would have revolutionized human physics if anyone had been around to study them. The message was simple and directed to every major world government, scientific institution, and news organization on the planet.
"This is Dr. Sarah Chen, transmitting from Kuiper Belt coordinates 47.3 by 192.8. I have recovered 17 human children from an alien slave trading operation. We are not alone in the universe, and we are not safe. Prepare."
The message included everything: technical data on Zephyrian technology, star charts showing the locations of other hunting fleets, and detailed intelligence on the galactic civilization that viewed Earth as a source of valuable merchandise.
Then, Sarah triggered the station's self-destruct sequence.
She had programmed it carefully, giving the escape pods time to reach minimum safe distance while ensuring that every piece of Zephyrian technology and data would be destroyed.
The explosion would also send a message across the galaxy, a warning that humanity was no longer easy prey.
Sarah gathered the human children around her, Emma's hand warm in hers, and activated the final gift she had prepared. Her ship's emergency systems engaged, creating a protective barrier around the group while the station began tearing itself apart. They rode the shockwave home like a bullet fired from the edge of the solar system, Sarah's ship serving as both shield and guidance system for their impossible journey back to Earth. The return trip took 6 days, during which Sarah told the children everything about the universe they lived in, about the threats and wonders waiting among the stars, about the responsibility they all now carried as the first humans to see beyond their small blue world. Emma listened with the intensity she brought to everything, asking questions that made Sarah proud and terrified in equal measure. Her daughter had seen the galaxy's dark side, but she had also seen that it could be fought, that monsters could be defeated by people who refused to surrender.
When Earth appeared in their viewports, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 weeks: peace.
Not the peace of endings, but the peace of beginnings.
Humanity's childhood was over.
They were no longer alone, no longer safe, no longer innocent. But they were also no longer helpless. The world that welcomed them back had been transformed by Sarah's message. Military forces were mobilizing, scientists were working to understand alien technology, and philosophers were grappling with humanity's new place in a universe that was far more dangerous and complex than anyone had imagined. But, in her kitchen, with Emma safe in her arms and pancakes burning on the stove, Sarah Chen allowed herself one moment of simple maternal joy. She had gone to the stars and brought her daughter home. Everything else, first contact, galactic politics, the transformation of human civilization, would have to wait until after breakfast. Outside their window, new telescopes were already scanning the sky, watching for threats that might come calling. Earth's children were protected now by people who understood what lurked in the darkness between stars.
The galaxy had learned that humanity was no longer prey.
Some species were born to hunt.
Others were born to flee.
And some, like humans, were born to protect their young with a ferocity that could reshape the cosmos itself.
The easy hunt was over. The real war was about to begin.